Welcome to Training Camp Eve. It is Tuesday, July 22nd, around 5 o'clock. Another episode of the Pats Interference Podcast, brought to you by the totally tubular and titillating CLNS Media Network. It feels like Christmas Eve, but I got to be honest, I am afraid to take that analogy any further because football Santa surely is nothing like jolly old St. Nick. I imagine he comes down the chimney with a play sheet and he's sweaty and probably looks like Dan Campbell and pounds some creatine instead of cookies. And I don't know what happens next or if he even brings you anything. So Mike Giardi of the Boston Sports Journal is here. You and I are lucky to survive the first Mike Vrabel press conference where at least one body was caught today at Gillette Stadium. Here is some more newsy items, though. The Patriots had every player report today when players were obligated, mandated. You got to be here, and some were already. Stefon Diggs was among them. He has been fully cleared to participate, full go in training camp. We'll talk about that. Carlton Davis and Jelani Tavai, who last we heard not cleared because they were on NFI and PUP respectively, are going to be back tomorrow, according to Vrabel. We'll talk about that. Terrell Williams, defensive coordinator. He's healthy. He's here. As Vrabel said, no coach should ever be full go, but the man's going to do his job as opposed to full go when we talk about players. And we have a potpourri of, I'd like to think it's more like a charcuterie board, right? You do a little sampling, the prosciutto. You give me a little salam, a little gabagool, because everyone is doing. We're the yeah. Oh, there we go. The position battles, and we've got the storylines and the big questions, and we all do the same stuff. And I said, look, I'm not going to do one episode on every single one. We're going to do a little bit of everything right here in the charcuterie board. But I want to start here. Every time we reconvene as a media corps down at Gillette this time of year, I am genuinely happy to see every smiling face. That includes yours. It includes Dan Roach. It includes Doug, obviously, Mike Kadlick. I don't know, pick your favorite Patriots reporter, media member, whatever. I'm very happy to be friendly with basically everyone who's there. I would say, honestly, everyone. But I cannot.
As far as you know.
Yes. Mike Giardi, for the life of me, for the next week, when everyone asks the same questions, as we just wrote all the same content. Oh, how was your summer? I think I'm going to start telling fibs. Like this year, I was in the Alps. I was meditating with the Dalai Lama's cousin. I went swimming with the dolphins. And I adopted a kid who's actually like 16. So I've got 3 years left with him, and I don't know how it's going to go. Is that fair? Or am I just going to sound like an asshole?
No, I'd say go with it and run with it and see how many people you can hoodwink, because some people get fooled very easily. So you could, see that and then say, this makes a lot of sense that person fell for this. Yeah, no, I like it. I would go for it. I would say I don't view this as like Christmas Eve. I view this as like first day of school, and I hated the first day of school. I like when you get into a routine. We will get into a routine. To me, once we get after the first day off, which is this weekend, and we get into pads, and then it's like, to me, that's when you really start to see what you want to see. Those are like, to me, the biggest 2 weeks maybe that we get to view, other than when we get to the regular season, is those 2 weeks of training camp, when it's the joint practices with Washington and Minnesota, when it's that period where you really see the competition get ramped up. So I'm more looking forward to next week than I am this week, because to me, this week is just a continuation of what we saw in the spring. Yeah. So sorry to be the Debbie Downer that I am, but like, I'm not going to get excited about guys running around in shorts. It's just not real football yet.
Well, to your point, before I call you out for peeing on everyone else's parade, Mike Vrabel kind of said the same thing today. And he was like, look, I don't know a whole lot right now. We have not played football. I will learn a lot when the pads first pop, and then some player who he doesn't expect, we don't know, though we've all gone down the list, and you and I are going to name some breakout players here later in this episode. That's the real football. The soonest that can happen is Monday, July 28th, which I will say, as I do every year, a couple of days during training camp, worth a lot more than the rest. Those are the padded practices. So if it's not going to be August 6th when the Commanders come in and they go head-to-head, and it'll be Drake Maye versus Jaden Daniels, which you'll not really see in the preseason game 2 days later, come Monday, July 28th, after that, they kind of take it as it comes. But, man, I don't know. Like, yes, there is you see everyone again. Everyone's a little bit tanner, some more than others. Thank you, Mike Giardi, for that. Thought I was looking okay, and here we are. But I don't know. I feel ready. I am also looking forward to the routine. They're long days, but they're great. And then the media will be at practices, just to be clear, after the 2 weeks that you just referenced. We get to be at every practice through the preseason. Once that's over, we're kicked out. We only get a little bit of the beginning. Fans will be gone August 10th. But, yeah, it's a good 2 weeks. One of my favorite times of the year, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Like, to me, this is truly like, and I love that Vrabel said that today. Like, you don't know who's going to pop, but somebody always does. And I like that part of it. I like all of a sudden, whether it was J.C. Jackson or Malcolm Butler, like those sort of things happened. And you could maybe see a little bit of it in the spring. But then when you hit the training camp and you got into full competition mode, you're like, hey, that guy, he's something, right? And whether that's Efton Chisholm, whether that's, who knows, like as Mike said, you don't really know. But I'm looking forward to that part. I do find that like fascinating. And then like there's other stories that happen too, where like, oh, you start looking at that guy like I don't think he can do it anymore. Or, like we've lived it with James White, Teddy Bruschi. There's been Rob Ninkovich. There's been plenty of guys that like, all right, it's over. I can't, I saw it. I saw what my future is going to be. And I don't want to do this anymore. And we have the surprise retirement announcement, and we have it every year. Sometimes with guys that we know and love, and sometimes it's just some Wes Schweitzer or whoever,
Eric Decker, Reggie Wayne.
I'm not
doing fan favorites on that list of guys who just don't have it anymore. It's just a real stroke of genius. How can I maximum piss off fans listening to this? I love Teddy Bruschi. James White, Rob was terrible at the end.
No, they knew it. They were awesome players. They gave you everything, and those were ones when they retired. It was a real like. You have a moment kind of as a fan. You go back and think about these different things. When it's Eric Decker or Wes Schweitzer, you're like, yeah, whatever. Let's move on.
Yeah. All right. One player who is not washed, he is, in fact, has no limitations, according to Mike Vrabel, and that is Stefon Diggs. And I went back to prepare for this podcast, the column I wrote right after they signed him. And first of all, happy to report, this is one of the few instances like, oh, that didn't suck, especially something on deadline. And I say that in complete honesty because, anyway, we'll move on. But the point is, I did a little bit of a U-turn in those days, acknowledging that Stefon Diggs, it's always worth noting, was not the Patriots' plan A. He was not their plan B. He was at best their plan C, okay? But where they had come from, with no 1,000-yard receiver since 2019, I said, look, who am I to complain? We have all watched too much bad football to be like, this deal wasn't anything but good. He's going to be 32, coming off the ACL. Maybe he doesn't even start the season, okay? It's a worthy investment. Well, now, here we are. He's not only going to start week one pending some future injury, he's going to start training camp and participate. And they'll monitor his reps, and that's not really anything that I care about. But he's back. And here's why that's important. Because in my opinion, he changes the ceiling and the complexion of this season more than any non-quarterback on the roster. And it's not just his talent. It's the talent of the people behind him and the opportunity to take Drake Maye to the next level in a very specific way. Third downs, red zones, got to have it situations. And when everyone else is covered, Stefon Diggs will be able to uncover. This is how you know why. Over the past 2 seasons, the Patriots saw the third most snaps of man-to-man in the NFL. Okay. According to Sports Info Solutions, among those teams, they were the only one to rank in the bottom 10 against man-to-man by passer rating and completion percentage in both seasons. Okay. So their receivers stunk. Everybody knew it. Diggs, meanwhile, last season in a half a year with Houston, converted 89% of his catches against man for first downs. Again, 89%. When he's got to win one-on-one, he not only wins, but he gets a first down and sometimes a touchdown, even at the expense of players like Christian Gonzalez, who talked a little bit about him today, who gave up 3 catches and a touchdown to Stefon Diggs last year. And I think it was week 6. It was whenever Drake made his debut, and we all forget because they lost, which happened a lot. Drake had his debut and it was great. The deeper numbers, PFF, whatever, he's in the top half, they're fine. ESPN loves him, number 7 by open score, all this different stuff. So yes, it's true. He's 32. It's not really any longer true that this is a player who's going to be significantly hampered by an injury that made him a discount in the first place. This is a massive, massive development before they've even practiced.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a little cautious just in terms of, and I know we saw him in the spring do some things and you felt pretty good about it. I thought, I detected a little bit of a limp, nothing crazy, nothing that didn't make sense for where he was in his rehab from the surgery. But can he be the same explosive type player? And can he handle the wear and tear of being out there, even if they spot him? Let's say he plays 45 snaps a game. Like, does the body hold up to that at his age coming off the injury? So I do want to see that. I do want to see if the quicks that, again, we saw in shorts that made you feel pretty good. I want to see if that actually translates when they're in pads and people are leaning on them. But I think your point is a valid one in that if he is even what he was. I'm not expecting 2021 Stefon Diggs.
No.
But I'll take the 2024 Stefon Diggs with the Texans before the injury. Like that guy in 2024 before the injury would be far and away your best receiver. And the trickle down effect of being able to slot guys and taking pressure off different players and like, oh, he can contribute now. If you get 35 catches from Mac Hollins because Steph's getting you 75 to 85 catches or 80, whatever the number is that you want to put on it, like, okay, Kyle Williams, where does he fit in this? Pop Douglas, there's a little bit less on Pop Douglas maybe from that regard. So like to me, that would make a massive difference if he can give you 17 and give you 17 games at that level that he gave with the Texans. And yeah, look, when he was at the Texans, he wasn't the one. He was behind Nico Collins. And on some games, he was behind Tank Dell, who unfortunately his knee is cooked after that terrible injury he had versus the Chiefs. But like there'd be more attention on him, but his ability to uncover versus man is key. And if he can draw sort of that extra attention to, and maybe you can get a safety over the top from time to time, it should make everyone else have a little bit more success. And again, you talk about what it would do for Drake too, just to have that guy. He didn't have that guy last year. And, you know, we went through most of the offseason wondering if he would have that guy this year. So that would be a huge plus.
Yeah, there are a couple more things about this too, aside from the initial excitement and in the big picture ceiling change that I see with Stefon Diggs. Number one is if all he ends up being, let's say he just lasts this season for whatever reason, wants to get traded, cut, whatever, something happens. If he's just a bridge for Drake Maye to go from rookie good to actually good, and he expedites that process as giving him a good, viable receiver, worth the investment. Okay, however many games they win, that's worth it because that expedites Drake's process. Being healthy now, also individually for Stefon Diggs in a vacuum, expedites his process of knocking off any rust that you might see. Instead of doing this weeks 5 to 8, he's doing this weeks 1 to 4, 3 home games. The Panthers are one of them. You go down to Miami, who I think is going to stink this year, even though it's a house of horrors. Then he's more ready for football games in October, November, and December, where we know those games are going to make or break their season. The last point I'll make is this. The Patriots, sometimes overtly with the Foxboro flu, okay, I've been very happy to manipulate or wait when it behooves them when it comes to the health of their players. And sometimes this means we're going to stash you on IR, even though this is going to heal in a week. We want to keep you. Or at the beginning of the season with the physicals, they were incentivized because of the way his contract is structured to go, we can wait a little bit. And also because we want to play the long game here with you. It might behoove you. They didn't do that. They cleared him right away. And I don't believe a new coach with the wisdom and experience of Mike Vrabel and the offensive coordinator with the wisdom and experience of Josh McDaniels is going to rush into this for the short-term immediate gratification of seeing him on the field. I think they're going to do it if he's actually good. So even if he exceeds all expectations and historical precedent when it comes to ACL tear recovery, so what? He did. That's what this says to me. And that to me says he'll also be able to exceed the historical precedent of guys now coming off of this and performing, because that's what he's going to do week 1 and beyond.
Yeah. I give him a ton of credit in terms of the ability to bounce back from this at this point in his career, at this age. I know that there was some trepidation going back to the boat stuff and his attendance or lack thereof during OTA process. And one of the things that I thought was, when this weekend, when we get the news that he wasn't going to be on PUP, and I'm like, I feel like they had a come to Jesus moment, a come to Vrabel moment, and that the light went on for Steph in this regard. And not, look, he loves football. He plays hard. You'll love that competitive nature in him. But just like this feeling out process between the two men, it's like, look, man, I need you here. You need us. Let's do this together. And this could be wonderful for us, in the short term. And this could be wonderful for you, whether you get the money beyond this year from us or whether you get sent free and you find another 1-year, $20 million contract somewhere else. Like, this can be mutually beneficial. So let's do this. And that to me, I feel like there had to be a moment there where they're kind of like, we're comfortable enough now with what you showed us at the tail end of spring to give you the guarantee. Now you're getting your $12 million signing bonus. I don't know how it's going to be paid out, but you're getting it. So
or how soon?
Yeah, exactly. But that's done. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. I think it's an important reminder when we talk about Vrabel, which we'll do here now in a second. Like, culture is, to me, habits and attitudes. the third component of it, you could argue, is just what you allow. So particularly when it comes to your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, I don't care, best player, especially when healthy, having some sort of transgression, whatever you want to call the boat incident. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it because I know this becomes 50% of the YouTube comments when we give you an hour. Spend 2 minutes discussing something that happened and mattered to the Patriots. When Vrabel says, look, that's it. Like that's got to end here. But in a way that connects with the player, which is something he's going to do better than most coaches, if not all of them, have done here in the last 25 years. That speaks volumes because it stops it where it is. And we heard this even from Brendan Schooler, who I don't know what his transgression would be, but the bottom line is he knows, hey, if you're not doing what you're supposed to, as he said, on your P's and Q's, and you're doing it in the manner they expect, you're not going to be here for long. He says Vrabel's not messing around. And it's not, as he said, out of fear or being scared. It's just like, look, this is the deal. And I'm here to help you do those things. If you're not with the program, though, you'll.
Yeah. You just muted yourself. I mean, it'd be nice if you were a professional. I'd like to work with a professional host. I consider myself a professional host. Do you want me to host it so they make sure that you know how this is done? I mean, am I asking too much?
No, you're not. Look,
okay.
this is the culture of the Pats Interference podcast.
I don't like it. We got to change the culture.
To take a dictatorial approach and mute you, as I might now if you keep interrupting. Yes, but I did not. I took it. I leaned back and said, even though there was a 1 second blip, and I muted myself touching the corner of my very finicky, sensitive microphone that also, if it's not on the P's and Q's, I might eject from this program and get it out here. It's my fault. I was the one that touched it and interrupted the program. And now we've done that for 30 seconds. Anything more on Diggs before we talk more Vrabel or the newsy stuff of the day?
No, because I think we might be talking about the point of that Vrabel made that I thought was an excellent one today. We'll see. We'll see if our host, our mediocre host, mediocre in the moment, takes us there.
Well, now he's getting text and letting the sound go off. It doesn't matter that it's from our boss, John Zannis, here at the totally tubular and titillating CLNS Media Network. Though saying that out loud makes an excuse. Anyway, I'll take a second. You take it from here with Braves. What did he say that really connected with you?
So to me, it was the question was asked by Tom Byrne. And it dated back to a point that Mike had made in January when he had his introductory press conference, was like, we have to learn how to be bad football teams, essentially. And when you're a bad football team, and you're going to see, as we look at the schedule, and for people that obsess over the easy strength of schedule, you're going to see, at least on paper, some teams that are going to be bad, like you were. So can you beat those teams? They haven't been able to do that the last couple of years. They've struggled. That used to be one thing that you could always say about Belichick. Didn't matter where they were in the part of their program, is like, if you give them a bad quarterback or a bad team up until about 2021 into that period, somewhere around there, right? Like, they took advantage of those guys. They won those games. Didn't matter what you had going on. You were able to coach it up and play smarter football than them. Let them make the mistakes. You've become the team over the last few years now, though, that makes those mistakes. The other team waits you out, and you're eventually, Drake May's throwing one up here. Your receiver, Jalen Polk, doesn't know where the out of bounds is, does some fancy thing in the back of the end zone against Miami, cost him a touchdown. You became the dumb team, and he wants them not to be the dumb team. And today, he was asked, have you seen growth in that regard? And he said, I've seen growth. But to your point, you've seen growth, but yet we haven't really played football just yet. But then he was like, I show them the good, the bad, and the shit that loses you football games, right? And to me, bingo, that's it. Like, you've raised the floor of this roster. You added some people. You've turned over almost half the roster, right? We can all agree it's more talent in this room than it has been the last couple of years. But you got to get over being that stupid team. You got to win those games, and you got to figure out how not to lose them first. And I think that's it's an old Belichick thing. But like, I love that point. But I also love the point quickly that he made later on the same answer when he said, "But I'm not going to show him that shit too much because as a player, eventually you're like, do I have to see it again?" And this was a Bill thing, right? Bill used to love the low lights and just beat the crap out of guys. We famously know Brady, like, after a while, like, dude, we've won a bunch of Super Bowls. Can you at least cut me some slack? No, that wasn't Bill's way. Mike understands, having been in that room, you can't just keep beating me up with it over and over again. Because eventually I'm just going to glaze over and not pay attention. And he's got to keep the attention of this room.
Yeah, and I want to make clear when you say that, I mean, A, it's true. And as our mutual pal Andy Hart says, truth is never mean. The Belichick part, like, he would show them some positive plays after losses. It was just when you did so much winning, it was the shit that got you beat or the mistakes, and that was it, as a way of a motivational tactic. And as things went longer, there was a need to evolve to players who needed to see some of the good because the winning continued and continued and continued. And so did the beatings in the meetings until morale improved, and then it just didn't, as we saw with Brady. Vrabel is more connected to that modern player because he was that player who got a little tired of hearing that. Now, you could also note, as I did writing a column that'll be in the Herald tomorrow, or out today, I suppose, whenever people listen or watch this, 2/3 of that is still bad. This is not letting anyone off the hook or giving a little dessert before you get to have your vegetables. Like, they're going to correct the bad. They're going to eliminate the shit that gets you beat and then emphasize the good. So I did like that from him. And also just an acknowledgement. Yeah, he doesn't know. And it wasn't, oh, I don't know, we'll see. It was, we're all going to find out together. And I think there's an element too of there are so many moving parts here, especially in offense with coaches that he's never even worked with, that they all need to find out how they work best together. That goes coach to player, and obviously what we'll all be watching and charting and breaking down and talking about in the show, player to player. So I think it still might take more time to all gel because of that. But for now, I think they got their heads in the right places, and it's because of the guy that we heard from today.
Yeah, it totally is. And when you say still 2 of those 3 things are bad, it goes back to what Schooler said, right? He'll give you some, all right, you made a mistake, let's fix it. He's not going to do the error repeating thing. And last year, whether on the roster or what have you, the error repeating went on and on and on. Mike's not going to take that. If you're going to repeat errors all the time, someone else is going to play.
Yeah. And he don't play, as the kids say, I suppose. Probably.
I don't know that that's true, but okay.
Time for another timeout for me. But baseball is here, and thank goodness for this, as I'm on vacation. Still playing Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to people who have never even played fantasy sports. Because here's how simple it is. I'm watching the Sox on Tuesday at home, and I think Cedar Rafaela, who's on fire, or Jaron Duran, who's not, or Raymond Anthony, who's really coming into form, will have a certain number of hits or runs, or maybe a home run, or Walker Buehler's going to give up a lot of hits, but maybe bounce back. Boom. Those thoughts, those takes turn into cash, but only at Prize Picks. And here's how it works. All you have to do is build a lineup of 2 to 6 players. Every player comes with a stat. It could be hits, it could be runs, it could be walks. And we get into football season, yards, touchdowns, you name it. They've got more stats and players than you can think of. You look at that player, you see their stat. You pick more or you pick less. And you do this for 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6 players. Lock in your lineup, and that's it. You can win cash. Withdraw it via Venmo, Apple Pay, however you want, quick and easy deposits. Again, you can mix players from sports, different games, teams, whatever it is. The best place to win cash while watching sports. So don't wait anymore. I haven't, still playing all summer and will straight through the end of the year. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. This is the best part. To get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Jelani Tavai and Carlton Davis cleared. Good news. Thumbs up. This is kind of simple. There was some mystery around whatever happened with Carlton Davis, who I suspect we'll get to talk with sometime in the next 4 days. By the way, the current schedule is everything's tentative in New England, but Drake Maye is expected to talk Wednesday. Milton Williams, Robert Spillane, Pop Douglas, Antonio Gibson, and we'll see about Stefon Diggs. Maybe he talks Thursday instead. Hopefully along the line, whenever we get to talk to Carlton Davis, go, hey, man, it happened in OTAs with the NFI list, but he'll be on the field. This is good. Tavai returning as well, everyone else a little bit later. And that was more than I honestly thought we were going to get from Vrabel today, who was famously and repeatedly said, I'm not doing injury talk, no timelines, nothing, very day-to-day, which, granted, is not great as a media member, but is, if I was in his shoes, is exactly what I would do. Right. Terrell Williams also coming back. What do you know? What have you heard? Is there anything you've asked about? And we can refresh this all the way back to comments from March, because he's just been so out of sight and thus out of mind for the most part that I think his reintroduction deserves a little bit more attention. So what do you have on Terrell Williams?
Yeah, I mean, so when I reported the time when he was the clear target and ends up getting the job, is that there were a lot of people around the league that were so happy for him because they just felt like he'd earned it. Like this opportunity probably should have come sooner, and it didn't. Now you could wonder why he was still on the staff in Tennessee when Shane Bowen was elevated to be the DC. Whatever, it's Terrell's time. He's such a good, and Mike made this point today about not only teaching the defensive line, which has been his forte and was what he did under Mike in Tennessee, but also like to be able to translate to the offensive lineman, like, hey, our guys beat you because of this, or like, hey, you got to do this, and like helping to teach those points. He's just, everything I've been told about him is that he's an awesome individual who has a real way of reaching his players, which is sort of like Mike has that same reputation. So I'm just kind of curious to see how that sort of goes, because I think he's a big energy guy. I think he has a big voice, and I'm kind of anxious to see that on the field as he, takes his first steps as a defensive coordinator. But he, even though it wasn't ideal, he still was involved. It wasn't like he wasn't watching the practice tapes. It wasn't like he wasn't meeting with the players. He just had to do it via Zoom. Now it's the process of doing it in person. And like Mike said, I think everybody's kind of excited for it. And then we'll see if he can actually call a game, because that's not the easiest thing to do. And we've seen different people try to do different things, being offensive or defensive, and hasn't always worked. I mean, Mike was a defensive play caller for 1 year in Houston, and it didn't go great, right? No. Didn't stop him from becoming a head coach and becoming a pretty good one, but we'll see about Terrell.
Yeah, it's a different skill set, and it doesn't necessarily carry any predictive power to being an administrator, which is really what a head coach is. I did like the note, too, that Vrabel offered about he'll connect with guys when I can't. And, that admission is independent of it being true. Like, his willingness to share it says something about Mike, and that vulnerability in the sense of like, here's a box of tissues, tell me about everything that went wrong in childhood. It's just his comfort in his own skin to say like, yeah, sometimes I don't get to everybody and we don't get along. That's what he's there for. He has a different approach, and as long as it works, it's good. And obviously Terrell Williams got promoted because it works well enough. For the people who have been completely out to lunch or just stopping by at some point now, Terrell Williams is out for months because of an unspecified medical issue. And the reporting around this stuff, I think, is a real gray area for us just to hit this, because look, that's that man's health. It sounded like there was a real, I don't want to say life-death experience, but an element of this that really scared him. So he just had to stay put in Detroit where it was suffered. I've had instances a couple of years ago, as it was since reported, Calvin Anderson caught malaria before the 2023 season and was out for a couple of months. I knew that shortly after the season started, but this is a really personal thing. And I didn't want to tell that story unless I was speaking with him and going about it. Terrell Williams has said at some point he will open up and discuss that. That is his prerogative. That's his story to tell. So, among all the things that we're, texting or calling, whatever about, it's just not high on the list. And when that story will come, he'll tell it. The good news is he's back, and we'll see what he's got, because this is the highest position he's ever had, aside from, Vrabel getting to let him be a head coach during a preseason game once a couple of years ago. Yeah. But this is real. He's going to be a real main character in the story this season.
Yeah, I like the little journalism, the nod to journalism there. Adrian Clem, we went through this with Adrian Clem a couple of years ago, right? Yes, and I would get people in the comments of Boston Sports Journal or on Twitter or whatever, like, hey, somebody find out what's going on with Clem. It's like, well, we kind of know what's going on to a degree. It's a serious matter, and that's his prerogative. If Adrian Clem wants to pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, I want to tell my story, tell it. I'm not going to go say, hey, whatever, what's going on with him is happening. Like, to me, when that stuff happens, it is that gray area where I feel more comfortable when the person who's suffering through it is the one who's telling you what's going on.
Yeah, and I'll acknowledge there's kind of a double standard when it comes to players, right? There's an element of, as soon as someone goes to the locker room mid-game, someone close to that person or the agent or someone on staff who might know, like, hey, what's going on? What do they have? Because let's be honest, there's kind of a
but we're talking in that regard, though. We're talking about ankles or knees,
right. And there's, look, if we're being totally honest, like, there's an objectification going on that we traffic in with these players, right? You are not, Stefon Diggs, 32 years old, father of however many kids he's got, and likes this and doesn't like that, traveled there and whatever, has that background. You're just wide receiver for the Patriots, and this is a little bit different with the coaches, and nothing is more personal or important than health. And so, just for people who might have been wondering, as they once did, again, having had the opportunity to just tweet out, oh, Calvin Anderson had malaria, it's more complex than that, more vulnerable and better told with the story. But anyway, Terrell Williams is back. Let's zoom out. Big picture. What do you expect to see this week? We'll contain it just to this week for people who might go or expect to hear daily reports and think we're going to live and die with everyone, which, look, I did that once upon a time. And then, aside from what you expect, what do you hope to see this week and maybe a little bit beyond?
So I think what we're going to see is a continuation of what we were able to see the 5 times that we got to watch them in the spring. It's just more of the same. They're, as we mentioned, they're not in full pads yet. Continue to ramp up processes as done through the CBA to sort of protect the players' health a little bit, and some of the practice schedules that have been changed over the last, 15, 20 years. The days of double sessions are long gone and hard to find. So I just think the thing that jumped out to me there is that the amount of hands-on coaching, not just by Vrabel, but by other guys too, the amount of individual time that the coaches were spending with certain players across the board, whether you're, the top guy on the roster or you're the 90th guy. Your guy might not even be here anymore. Like, that really stood out to me. I think you'll see that. I think you'll see how these coaches interact. Giardi obviously was going through it for a first time last year as a head coach, and he was more of a silent observer, right? We'd see him in different position groups, but not necessarily hands-on. You'll see Vrabel. He'll be on one sideline talking to a special teams guy, and then you look up 45 seconds later and he's 100 yards away talking to one of the defensive backs. And then the next thing you know, he's over here telling, we got to pick this up, or like whatever. That's just sort of
in between the 100 yards, he's racing some receiver who's just going downfield in a casual go and positional drills to make sure they feel urgency to go catch that ball as if someone's chasing them, because he literally is.
And I think that from the time that I was able to spend around him in Tennessee when I was working at the NFL Network, that's the sort of things I saw there too. It's not, he hasn't evolved in that regard. I don't think he has to. Like, that's just who he is, and he wants to be involved. And I think we would see Bill get involved, and you see him have conversations. You'd also see him standing over in the sidelines, twirling his whistle in the last 5 years a lot too, while he talked to Bon Jovi or whoever. There's a different level of urgency now that I think you'll see. And then what I'm hoping to see is a physical camp when they get into the pads. And Mike lived it, but I think he understands that you do have to toughen the body a little bit to what you're about to face when you go through the regular season. So I'm hopeful that we'll see some, not necessarily the long meandering practices that we saw last year, but some of the physicality that we did see last year that had been, I think, absent from some of the Belichick's last few camps. I'm hopeful that we'll see that, because I think that's sort of how I know that's how we did it in Tennessee.
And I'll add this too, because you're right in that the foundation and really just most of what will happen in the next 4 days is a passing camp. Non-padded. It'll be 90 minutes for the first couple of days. They'll go to 105 minutes, days 3 and 4, take a break on Sunday, come back Monday. And I would be shocked beyond belief if they were not in pads that Monday. And that will be the day, as Vrabel said today, you really start to find out. But in the near term, I think you're going to see an uptick, not an urgency, but a lot of coaches yelling, because the teaching period, there's some install still going on. You got to go. This is it now. Mistakes count. And I think you're going to hear McDaniels scream across the field. I know you're going to hear Vrabel's voice booming. Terrell Williams, I can barely remember what his voice sounds like, but I know I'm going to remember it after tomorrow's practice. Because this is the staff that they brought together. It is a mix of guys who are fire and brimstone, and then some casual teachers, but there will be energy, there will be urgency and efficiency about this. They know they need to maximize their time, because they just can't afford to dilly-dally, or as we saw as camp progressed last year. And let's be accountable. All of us were touting, hey, Giardi Mayo's run a physical, punishing practice. This will be good. And it was good initially, and then it wasn't. There will be little tolerance for the stuff that was punished initially. Take a penalty lap. And then a couple weeks later, false start, just get back in the huddle. That's not going to happen. Whether it's penalty laps or whatever it is, Vrabel's going to be on every single mistake. So a little, I don't want to say anger, but, just some heat, some more heat to it in addition to the thickness.
Yeah, and Andrew, you have to be, again, going back to the CBAs and the no double sessions, time is more precious now. They spend a ton of time in meeting rooms and they can do walkthroughs and all these different things. But the actual physical practice time, the way it's limited during the regular season as well, in terms of full pads and sort of the contact, this is your window. You got a couple 3 weeks here where you're really cramming in a lot of stuff. And to your point, it's all right, pressure's on now, man. This all counts. We're you may have made that mistake in the spring, and we'll talk you through it. And no one's going to yell at you necessarily. You do it again, and now you start getting yelled at, and now you're afraid to go in, and you're going to get tapped on the shoulder and say, bring your playbook. Coach wants to see.
Yeah. All right. Last thing I'll say before we go to our breakout picks, storylines, biggest weakness, all this stuff. I want to see some players pop. I want to see exactly what Mike Vrabel wants to see, and not in the sense of, it's fun to see, the Gunnar Olszewskis come into our lives, or Jacoby Myers, or you said J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Joe, however far you want to go back. If this team wants to elevate its ceiling beyond, hey, Stefon Diggs is healthy, you are going to need help from unexpected places and unexpected people. And at this point, everyone's hit on all the names. There are no real sleepers, and we'll do the breakout picks here in a second. But, whether it's Braden Swinson, Christian Ellis, Craig Woodson, like they will show up early, and then they have to show up often in a positive way, because those are the guys you're relying on to change a season in a collective where you kind of know what you're going to get for your Morgan Moses. That's great. Mondre Stevenson, cool. Pop Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry, Steady Eddie veterans. Who's going to surprise? Who's going to make a leap? Because that's the only way the team does as a whole.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts of camp too, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, you just get these moments where you start watching that guy going, there might be something there. And Mike acknowledged, like, hey, we don't necessarily know. Like, we go through the spring, you don't contact balance. Is he a little bit faster with the football in his hands? You never know these things until it actually starts to happen. And then that's that kind of that cool, like, oh, eureka, that guy might be something one day.
Yeah. All right. Breakout pick. Give it to him.
Breakout pick. Keon White. I think, to me, if it doesn't happen this year, it's not going to happen. Like that this player that we keep projecting is only going to get so far. He has all the physical ability in the world. He might not be the bendiest top of the rush guy, like, I don't know, some of the other pass rushers you look at now, because he's not 250 pounds. He's 285, 290 pounds. But I mean, my God, like, you couldn't sculpt a better football player. And we've seen moments of sheer domination. Go back to the first 2 weeks last year. I mean, in the backfield nonstop. I made this point on TV weeks ago about the Keon White thing, where Keon White gets a lot of love on like social media from some of the football quote unquote nerds, like, oh my God, you got to watch this guy. And I'm like, no, you're not watching him completely. You're watching this awesome reel of 90 seconds of just absolute destruction, which he's capable of, because he shows you it. It's there. It's there in games, in bit parts, or even for long extended periods in games. You've got to do it week after week if you're going to be the guy that everybody here is dreaming of and the football nerds are all excited about. We haven't seen him do it. I've seen him struggle at times against the run when he shouldn't struggle against the run. I saw him disappear at times as a pass rusher. And look, yes, I understand there wasn't a lot around him. Okay, well, if you're this freak, you got to elevate a little bit. Who were a lot of the veterans complaining about early on last year? It was Keon White. Now, maybe some of those veterans had ulterior motives. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I think there's more there, but I'm tired of being teased by it, and I'm tired of people talking about it. I want to see him do it, because I do believe that it's in there. So give it to me. And to me, if Milton Williams is healthy and Christian Barmore is healthy, can't get much easier than that. Like, you're going to be singled up a crap ton. Go win. Go beat those guys. That was a fire and brimstone speech. I'm ready now. Let's go. Let's go.
I did start to not space out, but daydream when you said, I'm sick of being teased. And I just imagined Keon White physically teasing you, like poking you, prodding you, and just the fear that would just jump across your face. And he's not want to do that. He would rather just not talk to us, and that's fine. Though he's come on the show, and we've had, I thought, a real fun segment. I think early September last year before the Seahawks game, Bill Barnwell was on. I'm with you in the sense in that all we've seen from Keon White are flashes. Flashes are not real. What's real is what's consistent. And he is not a consistent player. He is a player where you look at him and there is an eye of the beholder part of this, where people will go, if you really like Keon White, you point to the 4 sacks in the first 2 weeks. Then you go to some deeper pressure numbers and you say, look, the athlete is in there. He was poorly coached. And you go to those 90-second reels. You go, great. If you're a Keon White detractor, you would go, he did fall off. He took unnecessary penalties. He did not fix his mistakes. And he was an error repeater. So it's cool that he has this bull rush and this inside move, and he's starting to add a little bit more. But I don't feel like I should have to tell an older rookie, guy who's in his mid-20s, about being layered in his approach and more disciplined about fixing his mistakes. So I'm with you in that if it's not happening here this year, it's probably not going to happen, period. I do, though, have a lot of faith in his new position coach, Mike Smith, who we don't know a whole lot about, but is the only guy on the defensive staff that Vrabel's not worked with before in terms of position coaches. He's got a long track record of doing really good work with bigger pass rushers like Keon White, who I included last night on TV, a breakout candidate. So I said last week or the week before, like, I still don't know what to make of him. but I'm going to lean positive here and think whatever's there, they'll get out of him. I picked another edge guy, though. Caleb Chason. If you want to talk about flashes, this even goes back to him being a first-round pick in 2020 at LSU, who every few years just has this freak off the edge who seems to disappoint or is just this ball of clay that you go, oh my God, every coach, every GM's like, we can do something with this. Well, Jacksonville did not. 4 sacks in 4 years. 4 sacks, though, in Vegas in his last 6 games. I am not here to, trumpet the importance of sacks because I don't think it's a really totally telling stat. The pressures, the win rates, those are better. My point is, and I can only say this for a couple of more days because he's about to have a birthday. He's only 25. So, okay, he's only 26. He, I think, is getting better coaching, not only just from Mike Smith, but did last year in Vegas. This is a guy who's on a 1-year, $5 million contract. This is a guy who is taking first-team reps for stretches of spring. And I don't think he'll start opposite Harold Landry or Keon White. I do think, though, for a defensive line, it's going to rely a lot on rotating players to replenish them and keep them fresh and have a good pass rush in the fourth quarter where games are won and lost. He's going to be a piece of this. And I think the upside there, whether you want to go all the way back to 2020, which famously in this show, I do not want to do with Kayshon Boutte. I don't want to hear anything more about the freshman season at LSU or Caleb Chason, who's even older. The point is, he's in a make or break period of his career where everyone just assumed he was broken. There's still something there. And even if they just get, 6 sacks or whatever he had last year in Vegas, it's a good signing. He's my breakout.
Yeah, I like what I saw in the spring. Again, it's not real football. They're not in pads, but clearly there was some feels like the coaching staff liked them. As you said, you're getting reps of the ones and there was, meanwhile, Anthony Jennings, is playing with the 3s mostly, give you kind of an insight into sort of how they were looking at things in the spring. I like it. I like the idea that because he hadn't been coached very well, that maybe now he's starting to figure it out, even though he's this would be year 6, right? So yeah, I think that's a fair point. I'd also love to see Braden Swinson just come take that from him, though. Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite draft picks, just in terms of what I think he's capable of. And again, fell down in the draft, so I'm not going to make any bold predictions about Braden Swinson's future, and he's going to be double-digit sack guy, but he has all the physical tools that we're talking about. And I'd love to see him involved in the conversation, which he wasn't really in the spring. We'll see if now when the pads are on that he can actually sort of make his presence felt on a daily basis.
So the edge, I think is an underrated position battle. And I did 6 for the Herald because, again, we're all writing the same stuff, topics, blah, blah, blah. And it works. I'm not doing the position-by-position breakdowns, I will say, because I just know there are not enough people reading the offensive line ones or the tight ends when it's just the same crew that we're running back. So I didn't do those. But
they are when I do it and I say that you want it. It's like last year was like watching, it was wretched, and you better off just like sticking a rusty spork in your eye, which I warned the people not to do at home. But
yeah, was there like a warning graphic sign at the top?
It should have been right. Absolutely. Or back in the old days in TV, I'm older than you. When the wrestling was on Saturday mornings, they put a big X on the screen if something bad was happening, which was like the claw. God knows like the claw was going to break somebody's head or something, but they would put the X on the screen. So you'd be like, oh my God, what's happening? It's the claw.
All right. So the edge is a sleeper position battle or lower on the list. What's at the top of the list? The number 1 position battle you're watching this summer?
So I am sticking to wide receiver just in general because we talked about Diggs, but what's going to happen beyond him? Everybody fell in love with, a lot of people fell in love with Chisholm in the spring. Well, can Chisholm actually push Pop Douglas, who's caught 66 passes last year? Does Chisholm have the feel that maybe Douglas lacks in that position? Because we know Drake likes to throw to guys in the slot. We also know that Josh's offenses in general have favored the slot. So can maybe he push in that regard, or with someone like Polk get some more reps in the slot if he actually shows that he's capable of doing something this year? But I'm curious to see how that all shakes out there, because once you get past, if there's a healthy Diggs at the top, that's great. But then where do the rest of the chips sort of fall in place?
Yeah. You and I were at odds for a while last season about Demario Douglas. And look, he made mistakes. My answer when we were texting privately was always he's their best separator. He's best after the catch. I'm going to make excuses for the guy who's got the higher ceiling, and his problems aren't from lack of effort or trying. It's not a cardinal sin. And you would counter rightfully with like, well, look, his feel against zone is not good. Like it's just the inability to find the exact soft spot to sit down, the chemistry, the gotta have at certain moments. And these sound like nitpicking. Big third down at midfield against Miami, just in the wrong spot, thrown behind him, quote. The interception against the Rams. And at the end, they had a chance. They really did to beat a good team that almost beat the Super Bowl champions, the only team that tested the Eagles in the entire playoff run. And that has me a little bit worried when people say what you just did, which is, hey, Josh McDaniels' offense is like an easy pass for slot receiver, straight to 800 yards or 900 or 1,000, whatever it is. And I get that. I also know that Julian Edelman, even though it took him 4 years of laboring and converting to be a wide receiver before he really took off in 2013, as a former quarterback, had a really good feel and sense by that year 4 or 5, 4 zone coverage. Wes Welker did as a lifelong receiver who grew up in an air raid offense at Texas Tech and goes to Miami and takes a pounding. I'm not saying he can't develop a little bit more of that, but the route running details are stuff that will have Josh McDaniels benching him in a way that the Patriots, frankly, couldn't afford to do last year, and that staff wouldn't. And even as a rookie, tolerate to a degree, but you go, he's a rookie. No, this is year 3. Like whether it's Chisholm behind him or Josh McDaniels yelling down at him because he's a little short, I'm not worried for his roster spot. I just think there's a wider range of outcomes here with how his season goes statistically than is currently being discussed.
And I will tell you this, having had many conversations about the position, because I do love watching the position. Not that I compare to these guys, but I played it in college.
Oh, did you play?
Yes.
Did you play?
But I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, like, I've always had a fascination with that position. I've watched guys when I was growing up. Like, that's just one of my things. Most guys that do this at a high level, most coaches that are in the National Football League will tell you feel is not something that is taught. You got it or you don't. Yeah, you can make a little here, a little gain there, but like in general, you just know, hey, this guy's playing me a certain way, but actually when the play happens, he kind of alters what he's doing, and you don't even have to look at him. You just kind of feel him. You feel him on your back, and you keep going, or you sit down because he didn't take that step, or the linebacker did this, and like, does he have that in his game? He hasn't had it consistently in his game, and I just wonder if that part ever comes for him.
Yeah, and it's funny because there are players who you would think is, just meatheads, but we're actually in this regard meathead geniuses. Chief among them, Gronk, who just like,
oh my God, yeah,
me find space, me sit down in space, me get ball, stiff arm defender into earth, touchdown. Like that was him, just unspoken, and he never got the credit for his football intelligence that he deserved. And even this was before I covered the team, but listened, read, watched enough to know that. This isn't to say it's not possible. Like I like the kid a lot. I like the player. It's just the fit that everyone's seamlessly projecting here is the reason, that uncertainty, why we both pick receiver. Let's run down the other guys. Kendrick Bourne, I think, demonstrated a friendly relationship with Kendrick. He's been on the show. I think another year removed from the ACL, had his best season in this offense. That's another player who probably has a different outcome or range of outcomes than people give him credit for. He will, though, need to at least beat out Matt Collins if he wants to be the third receiver here, because I don't think he'll be the number 2. Others in the mix, Kyle Williams, who we can all love as a prospect, and it was okay what I saw in the spring. I'm not going to predict anything there. We're going to find out when the pads are on. Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, and then Kayshon Boutte. None of whom I'm high on, but 2 of those 4 guys, including Williams, is a lock. So 1 at least of the last 3 are going to make the team. What, if any, thoughts do you have on those 3? Boutte, Polk, and Baker.
So I don't like the way Polk crumbled last year for a lot of different reasons. I think some of it was physical, some of it was definitely mental, and that concerns me. I do flash back to impads in August when he looked like he'd been playing in the league for 4 or 5 years. There was like, and I never looked at him and I thought like, oh, that's a 1,000-yard receiver. But I thought like that guy could catch 50 passes this year. That wouldn't surprise me. Like he just seemed to like have a good feel for Drake and Jacoby at the time, and like not a great separator. We know that, but like he was getting open. And then maybe his camp wore down late in August. I'm like, I'm starting to see the issues of the separation thing, which has kind of changed how I evaluate receivers, how I evaluated receivers in this year's draft. But I'm just wondering if there can be more of that. Like I'm not, like historically, it tells you he's not, the chances of him becoming a good player in this league are slim. Like if you look at those guys that are drafted that high that have that sort of historically bad year, they generally don't pop. They generally don't become a guy that you're like, oh wow, that turned out to be a good pick. But I still am holding out a little bit of hope that maybe he can find some more of what he was in August, and that actually carries into a regular season. I would think that he has somewhat of a clean slate. As for the other guys, like I give Kayshawn credit in that I didn't think he could be counted on. And you could still argue that there were moments on the field where he couldn't be counted on, but he became at least an NFL player last year in terms of some of the production. And like, if you cut him, I think he's going to end up on somebody else's roster. I don't think the ceiling is massive for him, but I'll give him that credit for having made enough improvements to be someone that, for better or for worse, had to stay on the field last year. And I don't think Javon should even show up. That's kind of how I feel about it. He did nothing in the spring, like shockingly nothing in the spring. And I just feel like it's such a hard, long battle. Like I think he's going to have to go nuts in August for him to have a spot on this team.
Yeah, I'm with you on Polk, and I've said as much before. It's not a hope, it's not a bet, it's not a probability, certainly, that things really U-turn for him, because people, including our guy Doug Kyde, noted that in that Washington offense, the 2023 season, they go to the championship game. Rome Odunze was the undisputed number one. When they were all clicking, Jalen McMillan was probably their number two, and Jalen Polk was their third best receiver, again, for a historically great college offense. But I just can't shake that last summer. And if it was a mental thing, as was detailed by Elliot Wolf to Henry McKenna in that Fox Sports story late in the year, and a little bit by himself and by other people that you and I have talked to, there's a sense for me that if it really was about a drive, that instead of pushing him further, which is what he wanted, to be so hard on himself, that I'm going to go places other people can't. The other part about that is it will pull you down into depths that can be really troubling and damning. And I'm not talking about anything, really serious mental health issues. It's just to say that if he gets with the team psychologist or people around him to fix the mindset, like there is enough physical tools there to work with. Baker, I hope, shows up. I don't know what's going on with him. I'd heard good things around the combine, going to turn things around. Then he changes his agent, and that can be very good things. Sometimes it can be very bad. In other instances, if you're just firing a guy because he's not telling you what you want to hear, I don't expect him to make the roster. Kayshon Boutte, I don't talk a whole lot about on here because I just don't have a lot to say. I think his best plays are Drake Maye's best throws. And he catches the ball, and he does it better than I could. But he's a 4 or 5. All right. Biggest weakness. I picked the offensive line. Am I wrong?
No.
Okay.
I was saying on TV last night with Kern, I'm like, I know what they tried to do, right? So part of me is just like, I can't get over the fact that, Will Campbell's a left tackle. They wanted Ronnie Stanley. They talked to both Moores. Like they even offered a contract to Cam Robinson. Like
Brian Kelly.
Yeah, they didn't want. I'm not saying they wouldn't have drafted Will Campbell, but I don't think that was their first choice either. Like maybe Will Campbell could have been, hey, we'll start him off at right tackle, or maybe he's the guard. Like they would come to the conclusion that he's the best guy to pick at 4, even if they had a left tackle. But he wasn't their first choice. He wasn't their second choice. He wasn't their third. You talk about Ryan Kelly, Drew Dahlman, Patrick McCarry. Like they made so many overtures to free agents that they did not get. And so then it was the quick pivot to Morgan Moses, which we can all agree Morgan Moses has already made an impact in terms of his leadership, and having Will Campbell like stuck to his hip, constantly talking in the practices that we were there. Like that's one of the reasons why he's here. But can Morgan Moses at 34 hold up and be a good player? I don't, he struggled at times last year because he's tough. He played through some injuries last year, but he also missed 3 games. And then it's Garrett Bradbury, who had a historically awful pass blocking season last year in Minnesota. Minnesota changed their whole interior offensive line. We're not big enough. We're not physical enough. They went and got Kelly, right, to put in the middle. So can Big Mike, with his $20 million or whatever it is, can he get back to being a good football player? Because he didn't find that until late in the year last year. And, he was slow to be involved this spring because he's coming off the hand thing. So I didn't even mention left guard. Like, I don't know, man. They tried to do stuff. They did do some stuff. Is it good enough? I got to see it. I absolutely have to be convinced of it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have much to add because I I'm like sick of talking about this offensive line for the last 4 seasons. And it's not going to prevent me from doing my job. It's not going to prevent me from being honest. I just think people listening to this have heard the names. We cycled through it. You're absolutely right that in a lot of instances this offseason, they didn't get their plan A, didn't get their plan B. They're on C and D, and that includes the offensive line. And I'm going to pause for a second because I've said this on the radio and I think Fitzy's podcast. I've described Will Campbell as like the Louisiana love child that Vrabel never had. Is that like just his attitude and mentality and the way he plays football? But that it feels borderline to me. So this is something I would normally text you, be like, should I continue to say this? And you would advise me as you sometimes do. What would you tell me if now that we're just doing show?
I think it's hilarious. I probably would have told you maybe I wouldn't do it.
Okay. All right. Well, the damage is done. And thank God, Vrabel's not listening to radio in Maine, but they might listen to this podcast because the Patriots are about to consume everything that we do as it pertains to training camp. All right. Yeah, look, the only upside here, right, is that they've got better, younger depth, more options, okay? Cole Strange doesn't work out. Layden Robinson is in his second year. City So's in his third. I still think somewhere inside City So there's a useful NFL player. Cade Wallace, ideally he's a swing tackle. That looks like his role this season. He's in his second season. This is not rookies playing out of position or DeMondre Jacobs or bust. Those guys now are in their rightful places, just like we talked about. Stefon Diggs resetting the receiver depth chart behind them. That's happened here with the offensive line. Okay. Best storyline.
Christian Barmore is back to 2023 form.
Cool. Tell me more.
I just liked his I liked it. First of all, I liked the way he looked in the spring. And not that again, I'm talking about not from a head-to-head matchups, because again, they're in shorts and t-shirts. He looked leaner to me. I liked the way he talked. His energy reminded me, I mean, this is the way he talks anyway, but like it just, he had that feel like I know something. Like he wouldn't tell us why he's confident that the blood clots aren't going to come back, but he was confident.
He wouldn't tell you anything.
Yeah, I know, but it just
next question.
Yeah, whatever. But it just like, I don't know. I think he's hell bent on proving that he's the guy that he was 2 years ago. And that guy, again, I did the positional previews, and a couple weeks ago I did the defensive line one. And I just went back and looked at some of my numbers and then some of the PFF and all the other things. And it was like, God damn, he was really, really good. Like, I even read some of the stuff I did when to me, there was a turning point of him as a run defender somewhere in October. And I was like, that's the guy that everybody thought was a top 15 talent who, fell into the second round because of some of the concerns about, the energy and the effort that would give and, whatever. Like, I think that guy's hell bent on proving that. And I think having Milton next to him, again, I don't think Milton's going to match some of the ridiculous statistical pass rush win weight and all that things that happen. But like, it's a good player next to him. This isn't Daniel Akewale. This isn't, whatever. Like, so I just think that there's that potential. Again, if the health is important, he's got the blood, who knows when the blood clots, he feels good about it. And if he stays healthy, he can be, maybe it takes him into October before you finally start seeing that guy, but I think he can be that guy again.
You said Daniel Akewale, and I realized I had not thought about him in about 4 months. And
can I just tell you, because I was looking at when I did the preview, and I'm looking at, what did they get out of the guys that replaced Barmore last year? It is staggering how little production they got. And like, I'm not blaming Daniel. Daniel was not meant to play 65% of the snaps.
No.
But that's what he had to do. But like, you would think he'd just fall into something. He didn't even fall into anything. Like, they just got nothing from a pass rush perspective, and certainly subpar run defenders as well. Barmore at his best is a plus pass rusher and a plus run defender at that spot.
So I like it because I just want to see that for Christian and for myself. Like, there are not many people walking the earth of his size and strength and ability to do those things. And the environment point is a great one because it's not only just like there's attention going elsewhere, right? If the offensive line is, third down, what protection scheme we're going to run, who are we going to double, who are we going to slide to or run away from? It's also that Milton Williams got his head on straight, and they've got a really good defensive line coach as their defensive coordinator. And then Vrabel, of course, you can get hands-on and try to get the best out of him. So again, it doesn't guarantee anything. I like it. To wrap on the Daniel Akewale point, I remember telling him, like week after week in the locker room, how many snaps he was away from hitting his career high. He hit his career high, something I'm sure I said on this podcast, before the season got to its midpoint. Like, that's how much he was playing. And so he, another useful NFL player, but was so banged up at that point, shoulder, knee, bruised some internal organ at some point, and was just playing through it all. So I don't know why it took me back that I hadn't thought about this guy who's no longer on the team in 4 months. But this is the job, is to think about guys who at some point are fringe players and obviously talk to them and get to learn a little bit more. Do you have anything more on that?
No.
Okay. Mine is far and away Maye and McDaniels and that relationship and what they can do together, because you can look at either individually, and Maye making a year 2 leap and Josh having to evolve and adapt, not just the system, but I think the way that he installs it, teaches it, and work with coaches that he's never worked with before. But the ultimate story of this offense is not going to be either of them individually. It's going to be what they do together. And there's a real element of Drake's game that is, we always want to compare him to Josh Allen, that he has to knock out the YOLO from what he's been doing, not just last season, let's be clear, out of necessity, but 2 years ago, and let's be clear, out of necessity in his last year in North Carolina, that Josh has never really had to work with. And this goes for Brady, who was inherently, I'm not saying conservative, but not reckless. Like, that wasn't his attitude. It was protect the football, be efficient. Same with, frankly, Matt Castle. Same with Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett when they brought him in. Mac Jones was the epitome of this, too safe. Then he gets to Las Vegas and has Derek Carr, who is just check down Charlie, and that's it. So what does he do with the player who is more willing to play with the risk reward, understanding that he's got the talent to make you go, no, this is worth it, running up to the last blade of grass on the sideline, whipping the ball across the field because he can make that throw and extend that play, even if they understand turnovers are likely going to go up as a result of that type of play, as well as their potential to score. He's urged him just to take, McDaniels has to Maye, the first read. I think that's smart. If it's open, throw it. That's going to make this offense go. But there's an unlocking of every concept or play he could want to run, and which ones he selects, what does he emphasize, and what is he willing to allow Drake to do once you instill the habits that we talked all last year about his footwork, and they cleaned that up, and it was done, and it was clean, it was good. This is more mental and a little bit more ingrained that I think they have to fix, and it's really interesting to me.
Yeah, Andrew, when I did the quarterback preview, I delved deep into just Drake. I just want to keep rubbing in that you just don't think those are valuable. And I talked to three different.
They're boring. Obviously, they're valuable. 3 different
defensive coordinators that played him last year. And like, you get the superlative stuff. Like, one guy was like, look, there's literally no portion of the field that you can't, you have to defend all portions of the field. Like, he can access it with his arm. Talking about the running style, and again, getting the comparison, although I hate it, to Josh in terms of, because I think Josh is just built different and he's a little bit thicker. But like,
built different.
Hey, well, if he, the point was, hey, if he gains 10, 15 more pounds, which is not necessarily out of the realm of possibility, that he could be sort of this similar type of battering ram. But then there was the part about the mental where, and some of this is explainable because you're a rookie, right? But they all said basically, like, we wanted to give him problems and see if he could solve them. And I said, well, like, that's what you went into thinking. And then what did you think coming out? And they all felt like, we gave him problems. He couldn't always solve them. And some of that is the answers that he was given by Alex in the offense, right? So some of that's the talent. Like, hey, we're giving him problems, and we also know, like, we can cover Kayshon Boutte with our eyes closed, or we can handle these things that they're doing. And so I think that's the next step for him. And one of the keys for Josh, one of the biggest keys, is like, can you get his brain wired in such a manner that he can solve the things that you're going to see? And now that everybody has spent the offseason, like Pete Carroll's been watching tape of him since Pete Carroll got the job. Like, not just like, what are we going to do to him in week 1 that he can't figure out, or that he showed he couldn't handle? Can he handle it then? I think that's critical. So I'm with you on that completely.
It's a great point, and it's tremendous insight. I could not text 3 defensive coordinators that faced him last year, because, I mean, I haven't been at this longer than as long as you have. But
I'm old.
Yeah, no. It's I don't know there's more valuable insight than opponents will tell you what they thought going in and what they thought coming out in an honest type of way. And the difference is not only that, you're coming from a system. And Hayden Winks, I think of Underdog, had a couple of great tweets this week, just ranking pressure allowed and teams that allowed the most unblocked pressure and the most quick pressure. The Patriots, shocker, were top 5 in both last year, which is not just your offensive line stinks issue. That is a system that did not give what you're talking about. Drake made the answers to solve and handle those, or even just players who could execute. As I've illustrated many times, we criticized coaching last year. At some point, if guys cannot just stop the man in front of them, then and you blame that on coaching, then nothing is on the players. And I'm not willing to go that far. The reason I bring this up, though, is to say that the whole concept, the rock upon which Josh has built this offense, it built it out and out and out until it collapsed, as I've said many times, under the weight of its own complexity, is he wants the quarterback to have an answer for everything. Everything. And I'm not just talking man and zone, but you're talking pattern match and all these different checks and pressures and all the little adjustments. And this goes for everything. So, yes, as he told, I don't remember who it was, someone earlier this year in a scrum, it's probably made a little bit too much how much is on the quarterback's plate. But the fact that he wants to have an answer for everything available in that playbook is something that every backup quarterback who's come through here has told me, I love that about this offense. It's challenging. Those answers are just going to be there. Is it a matter, though, can Drake access them quickly enough to solve those problems? Because they will have a lot of problems this year. It's a great point.
Yeah, and okay. You worry too about, as you said, the 2 back-to-back years of sort of some of that YOLO stuff. Like, does that now be like, can you work that out of your brain too? Like, hey, we should be better, and I'm giving you more answers. You got to be more, I don't even know. I don't want to say cautious because that's not what you want them to play, but like, can you process
protective?
This? Yeah, they just be smarter with the football. That's all.
And here's the point too that they will make to him. And I believe I'm not in the meeting rooms, but I know how Vrabel thinks and doing a lot of research. As I've told you, I make calls. I know you were writing. I was making calls this summer. They view this as Belichick did in an adjacent way, not exactly, very holistically, right? If we are going to win as a football team, how do we want to do? And the simplest explanation is to say, what is the strength of our team? Oh, our defense. Okay, don't get in the defense's way. And not to the extent that the Patriots ran their offense in 2022 and 2023, where it was far too conservative and not going for the 4th down and the run pass ratios were all whacked. It's just to say that, hey, sometimes the risk is not worth the reward of this giant throw. We can punt and come back and do that. And that will adjust game to game. But I think as they currently look at this iteration of their offense, until proven otherwise, this is probably a defensive football team. But there's a lot to learn. Again, coach to coach, coach to player, player to player. Like there's going to be a giant feeling out process that will go into the season. And then like every year with most teams, you're going to have that identity in mid to late October. If you're them, you just go fingers crossed. We're no worse than 3-3, 2-4, 4-3, whatever. So that then they can move forward if they're healthy with that identity and start winning games. All right, we got 2 more. Best rookie and then bold prediction. Best rookie, let's go quick. Everyone wants a bold prediction as soon as I say it. No one's thinking about the next one, but best rookie.
Well, better be Will. Like, and I just, he doesn't, I'm not expecting him to be great in year 1, but I'd take it. I would take average, because it would just be such a massive upgrade over what they had. But I think he's the day 1 starter. This is who you're rolling with. And he has to be competent out there. They haven't had competent left tackle play for a number of years now. The backup options, as you mentioned, I don't really want that. So he's got to be able to handle business over there. Again, doesn't have to be Tristan Wirfs, or Rashawn Slater right out of the chute, but like he's still got to be able to handle his business over there in a solid manner.
Do you think Mike is going to be harder on him because he's,
What is it? The Louisiana love child?
The Louisiana love child he never had. Because there's no person.
The Bayou baby.
That's so much better. Anyway, for people who haven't, read my profile of Will, like, look, I'm not saying this because I wrote it and the Herald needs clicks. Like, if you want to understand that kid and how Louisiana he is and what that means specifically, read that piece. I did not.
I also think, by the way, and I know I was a criticizer of the pick or having concerns about because of the length of start.
Yeah, so did I.
he's gonna. You didn't draft him to be a left guard, but he's going to be one of your best five. He's a good football player. It's just a matter of what's the ceiling of this football player, especially at that pick, at that position. If he ends up at left guard, I would argue you don't draft that left guard at 4 overall. But for the short term, he is your left tackle, and let's just hope it's significantly better than what we've had to witness the last however many years.
Yes, God help us. Stay healthy, Will Campbell. I did not pick him. I do think he is the most important rookie. That's not remotely arguable. And even if Kyle Williams has 800 yards, it's Will Campbell. Right. The best rookie I picked was Trayvon Henderson. And I was someone who argued with Doug, again, on this show after it happened. I didn't think it was a great pick because it's the deepest running back class heralded in 5, 10, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And you're doing it with a top 40 pick. Why not wait a little bit to that third round and grab, I don't know, a receiver? And then when I go, okay, who was the receiver I would have taken? Kyle Williams is on the list. So the fact they got both, I'm not upset anymore. The reason I say this is because I do see a path where he follows Ramondre Stevenson in the way that Ramondre Stevenson followed Damian Harris in 2021. A rookie who's more talented, more natural pass catcher, more explosive, as Ramondre was to Damian then. And by midseason, everyone looks and goes, yeah, the kid's better. He's the best runner you have. I'm not going to guarantee it. I have higher expectations for Ramondre, who, Phil said this last night. You said it to me before. You could argue hasn't been their best runner each of the last 2 seasons. It was Zeke Elliott and then Antonio Gibson. I think Ramondre has his best season since 2022. I think he'll be in better shape. I think he'll have the right mindset. I think he'll have better running lanes because as bad as the offensive line is in pass protection, Garrett Bradbury is not a bad run blocker. Morgan Moses, not a bad run blocker. Will Campbell will probably have more success as a run blocker than a pass protector as a rookie, as most rookie offensive linemen do, which is to say Trayvon Henderson's better set up for success than Kyle Williams or a lot of other rookies. And I just think the talent is going to take over. The talent is the talent. And I don't even want to bring up that he's God's gift to pass protection because that's what he is. He's a really good running back for a rookie. And even if I wouldn't have made the pick, he's my pick now for the guy I think is going to have the most impact this season.
Yeah, I gave consideration to Craig Woodson because I just loved what I saw from him in the spring. And again, it's the spring, but he just felt like he was always in the right place. And I'm like, that guy could end up playing a lot. And that was the one pick that when we were made, we were kind of like, you sat on this all night and you drafted a safety from California, But look, he looked like he was he looked like he belonged in the spring. We'll see if that carries over into the summer. So I couldn't quite go there yet. And obviously there's a bit of, Peppers and Duggar. There's a lot of money in front of him at the position, but sure would be nice if they had somebody young and upcoming that could, I'm not saying he can be Devin, but to have someone who could play a little bit of the middle of the field. And then they talk about having the ability to, as he did sometimes in college, to play in the slot. That would be nice. That would be very nice.
I don't have to clip this and text that to Devin that Mike says Craig Woodson's going to be you, but better. Is that what I heard?
I mean, clearly that's what I was saying. I mean, and you could do that in the 4th round. Why waste a 1st round pick on Devin McCourty? I mean, Jason, probably a better player, certainly the better looking of the twins. Went in the 7th round, right?
6th.
And when he came to New England, they won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Details don't matter. Bold prediction. Okay. I didn't specify this to you when I sent you the rundown today. This is for the whole season, not just training camp. This is, let's get it on the record. So I will go first. If you want to change yours, buy you some time. I think the Patriots, for the first time since 2019, have a 1,000-yard receiver. And I think that person is Stefon Diggs. And I don't think this is because you will see Stefon Diggs like you did the last time he had 1,000 yards. Okay. I think there's just no one to take catches from him. And it's a little bit of both, right? If I'm going to talk about he's had this miraculous recovery and he's your best option against man-to-man, and I do think that's true. I think he could get there for a team that 2 years ago, people forget, Demario Douglas led them with 561 receiving yards. That's where we were in 2023, okay? And the roster hasn't changed a whole lot since in terms of pass catchers. Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper are back. Behind him, we just went down the whole list. Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, Matt Collins, Kyle Williams, bunch of guys that were like, So I think he'll have the opportunity. I think I'll play a scheme for him. I think he is motivated. I think he's in the right opportunity and chance and environment. And maybe it's week 17 that he gets over the hump, but I think he gets there.
That's a good one. I'm literally, as I'm sitting here talking and I'm trying to listen to you and pay attention to what you're saying, which, sometimes
mistake. Yeah.
I don't know that I have a great bold prediction.
Oh,
I don't.
It's kind of the segment right now.
I know, and I'm sorry, but I don't know that I have this overwhelming thing. Like I'm concerned about their run defense. That's kind of lame. Like what's bold about that. Could I see Harold Landry getting double-digit sacks? I don't know. Mike uses them better than they was used last year, and he still had 9. And even though they tell me he doesn't have the same juice, it's just they're not. I'm sorry, I don't have a good one.
Who goes to the Pro Bowl in this roster? Let's do this because no one even cares the last 3 years because it's been no one since Matthew Slater retired. I know Christian Gonzalez.
Real Pro Bowlers. We're talking about guys that like.
No. Who makes the Pro Bowl?
Gonzalez.
Okay.
Wow. Gonzalez.
Boy, we are really petering out here at the end.
I know. I don't like Maye, I guess, right? Like if Maye has the jump, he should be a real. But I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the AFC. Like he'd probably. I mean, you'd have to have an awesome year to like.
Robert Spillane do anything for you?
I mean, he's a tackle machine. 150 tackles. Does that get you into the Pro Bowl? Maybe.
I mean, it didn't last year in Vegas, but like this guy got a big contract. I think he's going to be on bigger primetime. I mean, only 3 primetime games, but
it just goes to show you that like it's still a long way to go for the roster to me.
Yeah.
But I just like, okay, if you're right, and if Diggs is a 1,000-yard receiver, he's a Pro Bowler type. Maybe if Barmore has the kind of year I'm talking about having, that's a Pro Bowl type year. Nobody on the offensive line stands out, right? If you're going to have a backfield by committee, none of those guys are going to make it. Hunter Henry.
I think they get 3. I think Gonzalez is a lock for 1.
Yeah.
I'd take someone in the front 7, Barmore, Spillane, maybe Milton Williams. And then you go wild card, which this would be, it sounds like a cop-out. But man, one super underrated part of training camp is watching Bryce Behringer punt footballs further than I can throw or eject or do anything.
Such a cop-out.
But
you're talking about petering out. Now you're talking about punters.
Hey, my punter take is hotter than your. I don't really have one. The run defense isn't going to be that good. Like, oh my God, if you had said that in an early edition yesterday, I think they would have just said, you know what, you can go.
It's fine as long as the check clears. That's all that matters.
Okay. Well, that's all right. Is there anything we didn't cover before we get out of here? The mega Patriots training camp preview, because it'll be a couple of days before I record again. Do you marinate in this practice?
Speaking of kickers, and I hate, like I generally don't talk about kickers. Do you have any concerns about a rookie kicker? This is the 3rd one they've drafted in 5 years now, which like that's unheard of. 3 place kickers in 5 years. Arthur never made it. God. Chad Ryland, okay, I guess he's living okay in Arizona now. Had a couple game winners last year, but didn't make it here. Although the game winner against Denver may have cost you Jaden Daniels. And now the kid from Miami. Is that like any fear about that? Any trepidation about going with a rookie line snapper and a rookie kicker?
No, we're going to end this on a high note, and it might sound high or just positive, but you know what? You could do the stupid 3rd time's a charm. We could just do the fact that I'm not going to any guilt by kicker association here. Justin Rohrwasser was gonna keep myself in check here. Yes. A mistake. Let's be kind about this. An obvious, easily avoidable mistake. Okay, you get a do-over. Chad Ryland was a good kicker that they screwed up. Okay, Cam McCord and Joe Houston changed the techniques he was doing upon getting here after drafting him because of how successful he was with his own techniques and approach. He goes back to the old methods in Arizona and is kicking game winners every other Sunday. Andres Borregales, as far as I know, is just allowed to kick as the way he's always kicked. And they're going to monitor and they're going to look. This is not like, oh, yeah, we'll check in if you need any problems. Like Jeremy Springer is a hands-on dude. But I think with those hands and a guy who did a good job coaching last year in Springer and a super talented kicker, they're going to be fine. And I'll do this. You could steal this bold prediction. Not 1, but 2 game-winning kicks from Andres Borregales this season in the last 2 minutes of a game. How about that?
And Behringer is going to be top 5 in punts inside the 10-yard line. How about that? Huh? Top that, bucko.
Why'd you have to one-up me? All right. I think we saved the leaking ship that has been the last 5 minutes of the show. Obviously, we can find you at Boston Sports Journal. You are on Early Edition all the time at NBC Sports Boston. Anything else you want to plug or position
The
previews you got coming up?
The All 32 pod, which of course is on the CLNS Media Network. We're currently working through the previews of each division. You love previews, I know. But we also hit on some of the news from Patriots camp as well. So there you go.
Okay, the All 32. This has been all for me. Continuing the theme from last week where I just don't have a plan or haven't communicated it. We're kicking some things around. There might be, actually, I'll tell you this. I will guarantee this because I'm just on a guarantee heater.
You are.
There will be fresh content only on my YouTube channel that you can find every day from practice. Okay. Ooh. And this is not me, Charlie Brown with the football. Oh, just Callahan wants more people to go to my YouTube. I do. I'm going to give you something there. 2 minutes of training camp every time we have a practice. There will be videos. It's unclear if I'm going to upload them just yet to the audio feeds because it will be like 3 minutes of ads and 2 minutes of football. And even I don't want that. All due respect to our lovely friends at PrizePicks. So subscribe to my YouTube channel @_ Andrew Callahan. And of course, the CLNS Media Network and Patriots Press Pass and all that different stuff. So that's my only definitive announcement. And now I'm going to go guarantee something about Julian Ashby being the greatest long snapper since, Sir Long Snapper. All right. He is Mike Giardi. Thank you for spending almost an hour and a half here. I think we previewed training camp as well, if not better than anyone. I will be concocting fibs to tell our colleagues tomorrow. The first training camp.
Looking forward to it.
First day of school is here, baby. Happy training camp eve. Happy training camp.
Yeah. My battery light is blinking, so you gotta go now.
That's all for here for now. Thanks, man.